Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, good night, good morning, wherever in the world you are. Welcome, welcome to another night or morning or evening of chat on HP Chat Track. And of course, we continue in the legacy with the legacy chat. And tonight I have a very, very special guest in the house. But before we get to him, welcome everyone, whether you're in Africa, Asia, Europe, Antarctica, Oceanic, North America, South America, wherever in the world you are. Welcome, welcome. I'm your girl, HP. How are you guys doing? The World Championship is over. And if you are a track and field fan, you would have had some mouth watering experience. I mean, it was electrifying, it was outstanding from all around the world, from the sprints to the middle distances to the long distances to the field. It was all about track and field, and it was good stuff. I enjoyed it, and I want to say a special shout out to all the athletes who were in Japan, and a shout out to Japan for hosting the world and bringing us an outstanding game. And of course, a special shout out to Team Jamaica for what they have done and continue to build our legacy. Now, tonight is all about a special person. Yes, a very special person. He is an American. He is a legacy builder. Yes, I call him a legacy builder, from the track to NFL to you name it, to being an agent, the whole works. And of course, Renaldo Nehemiah is here tonight in the building, and he will be sharing his legacy with us. And of course, I'll be picking his brain because I'm sure that he knows about the Jamaica track and field culture also. So we will be having a good time. We will be having a chat. Of course, out of Newark, New Jersey is Mr. Nehemiah himself. So guys, sit back, relax, and enjoy this interview, and please to share it, because there are others who will want to see what will be going on and hear what will be going on tonight. So here we go with my guest in the building tonight. Renaldo Nehemiah, welcome to HP Chat Track. Good evening, good morning, good night. How are you, sir?
Good evening, Heather. It's just wonderful, and I'm honored to be a guest on your show. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I'm very well.
Awesome. I'm happy to hear that from you. Forgive me if I seem a little starstruck, but bear with me as we go through. But it is really a pleasure having you. And I have to thank Rainford Hunter for, connecting us tonight for us to have this great chat. But before we get into the meat of things, tell me a little bit about your early childhood. Born in Newark, New Jersey, what was it like growing up in your community as a little boy?
My mother was one of 10, and so we had a lot of aunts and cousins around. We always would. It seemed like every weekend we were at some aunt's home, some cousin's home. I'm the oldest of three, and I grew up just knowing family. Blood's thicker than water. We were always there for each other. That legacy still exists today within my daughters and my brother's children and my sister's children. That family is the glue that keeps everybody together. We're all God fearing. We're raised up in the church. Parents both were in the church, and sports was just an outlet. My parents thankfully introduced us to a lot of things, just for various experiences, to make us more well-rounded and able to adjust. Unfortunately, at the age of 14, I lost my mother in 1993.
Very early.
Yes, I was lung and breast cancer, and not a day passes that I don't miss her. She prepared me many years. She suffered at home and passed away in our home her last years. But she taught me everything I know. I was an inquisitive young man and asked many questions. And I think I grew up uh, very fast, and I was very mature for my age because I had to take care of two younger siblings while my father worked. But nonetheless, I was the first to go to college out of our family, and then my brother followed, and my sister followed. But even to this minute, everything that I do is in honor and recognition of my mother. I always wanted to make her proud in my efforts and my deeds. In 2004, returning from the Athens Olympics, I lost my father.
Oh, wow.
So in 2004, that the realization that at that point I was an orphan, right? I
Mm-hmm.
had no parents, and that was I was in my mid 40s at that point, and that emptiness, the realization that wow, I don't have any parents anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, that was shocking to say the least. But again, solid foundation. I knew I was guarded by God. I knew that I had an anointing on my life. He had been with me the whole time, and so I knew that I was not alone. You know what I mean? I was without parents, but I was never walking alone. So, and I've just taken the seeds that were sown into me, and not only just tried to sow them into my children, but sow them into as many people that God has put in front of my path. And going to college, University of Maryland, on an athletic scholarship, graduating from the University of Maryland, um, and obviously doing some things that only God knew that He was going to have happen. My life has been a whirlwind, to be honest
That's
with you.
awesome. But let me ask you before we even get to you going to university, you lost your mom very early. You were just 14. How did the whatever value she taught you at such a young age, just 14, how did that help to shape your life moving forward?
Well, my mother taught me how to cook. My mother taught me how to sew. I was an inquisitive kid, so when my mother was in the kitchen, I wanted to know what she was doing and can I help. And she knew that if I wanted to help, she would teach me. I watched her sew on her sewing machine, and I say, how do you do that? Can I help you do this? I asked so many questions sometimes that my father was annoyed, and my mother used to say, "Don't get upset with him. He's curious. He wants to know." And so it was kind of funny because by the time I, did graduate high school and go to college, some girls felt inadequate because I could do more things than they had learned already. And but that was by my circumstances, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, my father was be working, and while he was working, I was preparing meals, and I knew how to, wash clothes and separate the colors from the whites. I knew how to iron, all domestic things that young boys at my age wouldn't know how to do, shouldn't probably know how to do as well as I did. But that's what happens when you have to grow up fast.
Indeed,
Uh,
indeed, indeed.
and it was a sad time for me too, not just because of the passing of my mother, but because I was the oldest. My brother got to run wild because he wasn't responsible. I was. And I had a little sister 5 years younger. She was 9. And so while my early teen years, my friends were out having a good time, I was out looking, I was at home watching my sister. And I was very upset. I was very bitter about that because I couldn't be a teenager anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I had responsibilities. But I had come to learn that that was preparing me for a lot of things, and that discipline that I was developing in sports and later on in sports carried over into my life, carried over into my home life, and so I was able to turn a negative into a
Into a
positive.
positive.
Yes.
Yeah. And but before we get into your busy life and sports, I'm going to be inquisitive now. Your nickname. I'm from Jamaica. We're big on nickname. I can tell you this that every Jamaican have a nickname. So I am curious about your nickname Skeets. A matter of
Yes,
fact, when I told a few people that I was going to do an interview with you, they were able to tell me that your nickname is Skeets.
yes,
David Clark said it to me that I have to ask you. I'm not sure if you know who David Clark
I
is,
do, I do.
but right, he said ask him about that nickname. And Dorothy Scott also said that to me. So I want to know now, how did you get that nickname, Skeets?
Well, you can imagine as an infant toddler, Ronaldo's very formal to be calling, and so if you've seen if you're at a gun range or people shoot pigeons out and they say pull and the pigeon takes off and you got to turn your gun real quick and catch the pigeon. Well, that pigeon is a skeet. You go skeet shooting. So when I crawled across the floor, I was really fast, and they said I skeeted about. I go, look at him skeet about like a skeet across the room, and so they thought it was cute. So my family actually calls me Skeetsy, the baby name Skeetsy, and so it was appropriate because as I started to develop in track and field, it was Renaldo Skeets Nehemiah, and then as I really took off, it was just Skeets, and Ronaldo was so formal that Skeets was the name. And so even to this day, when I hear that name, I know that person has to be well seasoned. I'll say that to even know that name because the younger generation would never know that name.
True, true.
And I've had people in my office over the years, young folks will say, "Hey Skeets," and I'll say, "You're too young to know that name. My name is Ronaldo." And when I went to the San Francisco 49ers upon uh, a year after graduating, I felt at that point I was finally old enough to be called Ronaldo. So at that point, I started going by Ronaldo exclusively from 1984 to this day. But those who still call me that, they know track, they know that,
Mm-hmm.
and they're well seasoned.
Wow. Let us go back to your life a little bit as a youngster before we move on. You had to help with your siblings, your younger siblings. How did you find time to play sport during that time?
Well, it was after school. And so um, my brother and I played on different. We're a year and a half apart, so typically he was on the team with me, unless I was ahead of him. And then my grandparents lived about 2 blocks from our home, so every day after school, whether I had practice sports or not, we'd always go to our grandparents. And our parents, when my mother was alive, still alive, would pick us up, or when she had passed, my father would pick us up. So my sister would be at my grandparents until my father went to pick her up, and then we would all, my brother and I, or just I, whoever was the last one, would, we were only about a mile away, so usually I would just walk home. But that was one of the things that was, you know, kept you off the streets, if you will,
Yes.
kept you out of trouble. So that was a focus of mine. Is that my father put us at very early age into martial arts. And then as I gravitated toward track and field, my brother stayed in martial arts and I stayed in track and field. My martial arts teacher, my sensei, always takes credit for my fabulous lead leg over the hurdles. He said, I taught you that. And so we always laugh when I used to see him. He's like, yeah, I gave you that lead leg. And then, we swam on the weekends at the Y. My father would not let us go into water unless we knew how to swim. And so we took swimming lessons. We had bowling, we played basketball, baseball. We did all these kind of things. And typically, aside from the practice part of it, my father was one of the coaches in my earlier Pop Warner football leagues. And then he coached us in the basket. This is all when we were 10, 12, 11. He was a coach on the basketball and a coach on the baseball. So my father was actively involved in our recreational development. And then my sister played basketball in middle school and high school. So it was a family affair. We just, we supported one another. And then obviously we couldn't be at each other's practice, but my father would make the rounds between the practices. And all that was about, if you signed up for something, you had to see it through. Quitting was
This
not an option.
it's called disciplined, right?
That's right. My father was in the service, so that's probably where all that came from. Strict disciplinarian, and that's a curse and a blessing depending on which side of the discipline scale you're on. But
Mm-hmm.
I grew up knowing accountability, and so
You
life.
were you were unstoppable in high school. Tell me a little bit about high school. I mean, you were practically running the your age group hurdles wasn't enough for you. Your coach actually had you running the collegiate height hurdles. How did you decide that the hurdles was your event and not the flat sprints?
So in our home, we had a split rail fence around our home, and I used to coming home and run, and I used to always run and jump over the fence, thinking nothing of it, just like an obstacle course. And then in 1972, I was watching the Olympic Games, and then this one man named Rod Milburn, an American hurdler who won the gold medal. I saw him. I saw the hurdle event. I had never seen a hurdle event in my life, and I go, "They're jumping over hurdles. I do that here. I do that all the time. Wow, I like that." So I was encouraged how poetic it looked and how powerful and explosive and how he could keep his balance and get away from all these people who were right next to them. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't know the hurdle was the symbol of athletics, but that started me on my way because I thought it was the coolest thing and it was relatable to me. Yes, I could sprint. Um, but that was more. Everybody can sprint, obviously some faster than others, but not
Mm-hmm.
everybody could hurdle. And so I wanted to be unique and different and set apart. And so that's how, that whole process started, seeing something, relating it to what I took for granted around my home. And, you know, and then I had this special anointing, HP. When I was in 10th grade in a winter indoor race, a shuttle hurdle race, I ripped a hamstring off of the bone in my leg. I got hurt in the middle of a race. I did not run the rest of that year, and I didn't run half of my junior year. So it was the spring season when I was finally healed and was able to run again. And I ran 13.6, which was a state record for New Jersey. And so I went from running previously 15.1 to 13.6. And then my next full season was my senior year, is when I just shattered everything in sight,
12-9.
12.9, and was running races with people, normal height, and I was running higher heights. And that was the anointing on my life, that I knew that I wasn't in control. God was in control, because I was doing things that I was just having fun, put it that way. And I was glorifying God through, and my mother through my, my commitment to doing what I said I would do. I remember my mother telling me, uh, you know, don't let any man tell you what you can't do. If man can think it, man could do it. And those were impressionable words to me, because basically, there's a DJ here that used to say, uh, shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you're among the stars. And so that kind of subconsciously was what I had, nothing to lose, right? Uh, Failure is not trying. And so as long as I tried, I had nothing to lose. And so I had so much fun. The hurdles was a beautiful art form, artistic thing. The grace, the balance, the speed, the power, and the joy I got from running. I wanted everybody to see the joy that I was having through their eyes. And so that was enough for me, is that to have people go, wow, what did this kid just do? And that's what motivated me all the time. One, making my mother proud. Two, uh, just loving what I was doing and showing everybody else how much fun I was having in doing it. And the purity of it all, right? That I had a gift and I didn't want to rest on my laurels. I wanted to maximize it and have no regrets.
What a story you are telling. If you're just coming in, welcome, welcome. I'm seeing Carrie Ann Phillips. She's saying, wow. Vonnie M is also here, a Jamaican Olympian, Ivan Saunders. I don't know if you know that name. Ronaldo, another 1972 Olympian, 1976 Olympian. Monica Lewis is also here with us. Andrea
Okay.
Bliss, another Jamaican athlete. So
Yeah,
the Jamaican athletes are rolling out
they're in
for
the
you
house.
tonight. They're rolling out for you tonight. But
Mm.
let me ask you, as a youngster, how were you able to stay focused and maneuver those hurdles the way that you did, to the point where your coach said, look, we are going to give him the collegiate height hurdles, because this is not enough, the junior level is not enough? How were you able to stay focused at such a young age? I mean, I know that you grew up fast, but with mommy not being there and siblings to help with, how were you able to stay in the straight and narrow?
As I said earlier, I was an inquisitive child, right? So that curiosity came to practice and training, and I was always questioning and asking questions. And he felt that I was asking questions far beyond my age, as far as, okay, coach, this is what we're trying to do, but how can I do X, Y, and Z? I was watching this, I felt this, I believe I can do this. Is there something else we can add to practice that would make it go faster or make me stronger? Um, I was always pushing the limits. I was I gravitated to training pretty well, and I embraced the hard work, but I always wanted more work. And so,
Wow.
yeah, I wasn't satisfied because I just felt I wasn't giving my all the time. And just because I was better than everybody else, the Bible says have an audience of one. So I was just competing against me, not anyone else. And I wanted the best for me. So I had blinders on to everybody else, what they could do, what they couldn't do. And I kind of demanded the coach to get the most out of me. And so he realized that this kid wants more. He's talented. I need to take him to the next level as best I can. So my coach actually went around and solicited other coaches to come to our practice. At one point, I had three of the greatest hurdle minds in America. I had Wilbur Ross, who wrote the Hurdler's Bible. I had Dick Hill, who was Rod Milburn's coach. And I had Russ Rogers, who was a 400-meter coach himself, which was at a local college. And they all were at my practice watching me and shaping my form and my technique and giving my coach ideas on, tougher workouts for me and all that. And I embraced all of it. It was hard, but I embraced it because it was like a medal of honor to complete it, but also to see the satisfaction on people who knew more than my high school coach. And put it this way, I was never satisfied. Not in a,
You
I never was complaining. I just wanted more, you know.
you were track news. You were making the news. You were in every headline back then and stuff. How were you able to stay focused and not allow that to distract you, to focus on your academics also?
So I never took myself that seriously, right? Um, when the lights were on, I performed. When the lights weren't on, I was just Skeets. I was just a brother, a son, a friend. And I had a balance there. I didn't like the attention, if you can believe that. Um, I didn't like people to fawn over me, what I was doing. I lived it in that moment. You know what I mean? Breaking records didn't get any better than me living it in that moment. So no one could write the story better than I lived it, and no one can celebrate me in the aftermath better than it actually happening live. So one of the most important things for me was to return to normal as possible. So when people were, I didn't like giving autographs because I didn't think I was anything special. I'd rather talk to you. I thought that was an invaluable time spent talking to me than it was just a piece, my name on a sheet of paper. Even to this day, I met some of the world's greatest people. I've never asked for an autograph. I like talking to them. So when they give me 5, 10 minutes and they're actually eye to eye taking interest in what I'm saying, that's memorable. You never forget that. They never forget you. Otherwise, it doesn't take much to not pay attention and just scribble your name out. So it took me a long time to understand that my name on a piece of paper meant something to some people, even if it didn't mean anything to me. But I just wanted to stay grounded. I just felt if I ever got too carried away and too full of myself, the gift that God gave me, God could take away. And so humility was important to me. Now, some people used to think that I was very aloof and standoffish. That wasn't intentional. I was just uncomfortable being propped up like I was all that. I felt for my friends or my teammates who weren't doing what I was doing, and I didn't want anybody to think I was better than them. I was not. I may have performed better on the track, but when we're off the track, we were equal. And
Equal.
so that my staying grounded was probably a part of my greatness, if that makes sense.
Indeed. Scotch Plains Fanhood High School. From there to the University of Maryland, two different levels in your life. How were you able to, you're now away from home. How were you able to settle? What was the transition like for you from a junior level? Now you're at the college level.
Well, I was wooed by every college, major college in the country, and on
Wow.
several recruiting trips in Southern California.
Why Maryland?
It was the largest um, top-notch school, but yet it was only 3.5 hours away from my home, so I could get there. My father didn't have those kind of financial means to be flying me across country if I was going across country, and so I wanted to get home, on special days, and so I could take, I could get a car ride, I could get a bus ride, I could take a train, 3.5 hours back home, but 3,000 miles, an airplane ticket, I didn't know how many times I would be able to get home. And so being away was important, which I was at Maryland, but yet still being able to get home. So that was important to me. And there was a very good team. They were a very good team. So I was walking into I thought a win-win situation at the time. Mhm.
Your sophomore year, you just blew up. You just blew up 13.16, 13 seconds flat. You were unstoppable. Take us back to, if you can remember, tell us a little bit about your sophomore year. 13 seconds flat.
Well, it started, we had spring break right after the indoor season, and that's usually at the end of February, early March. And spring break always is around a week or so after my birthday. I'm an Aries, March 24th. So we'd always be on spring break around my birthday. And we had just finished the indoor season, and we were flying out to Arizona to train for spring break a week. And then we were going to open up the Bruce Jenner Track Classic following that. And so you're going from running 60 meters to the 110s.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we haven't had any time to transition. So you're just using that week to start doing a little bit longer training. And then the next race you run, you typically just trying to see where you are. Well, in this case, they had D.D. Cooper and a couple other great athletes there that I was not prepared to run against because I didn't think I was ready to go 110. I already was ready to go 60. And I was very upset with my coach because I'm like, I don't want to get embarrassed. I'm out here in California against these Californians who don't have an indoor season. So they're running 110s all the time. And he said, don't worry about it. You just, we're training. It's a training. And I said, it's training for you, but I don't want to lose.
Your image.
Yes. And so he was adamant about me going ahead and putting too much weight into it. Anyway, I wasn't gonna let that happen. I'm like, no way. I don't care if I'm ready or not. If they're gonna beat me, they're gonna have to run. Didn't know what I was gonna do. I run the race, I win the race, and I break the world record. I run 13:16. And I'm just looking like, what is going on?
Who does that though? Who breaks the world record in college? That's not something you hear about very often. That's not something you hear about very often. Tell me a little bit about that, especially that when you brought the world record below 13 seconds. I think it was
94.
12.9.
Yeah. So just for the record, yeah, I broke the world record in 81, 2 years later.
Right.
But in that particular year, so I ran 13:16. The very next week, I'm running with Greg Foster, arguably one of the best in the world.
13 seconds.
And I run 13 seconds. And the guy, Casañas from Cuba, Alejandro Casañas, false started, and they didn't call it back. So I had to go chase him down. He was winning the race for like 5 hurdles. And I caught him, and I ran 13 flat. I think I would have run under 13 had it been even. But my greatest race ever, and some people on the line may have been there watching, happened in your country of Jamaica.
I know. And I was going to ask you about that. But
Yeah.
while you're at it, tell us about running in Jamaica.
Yeah. So some of my frustrations were when I broke the 13-second barrier before I got credited with the 1293. Folks didn't think you could run that fast. When I first started, the world record was 1324. So sub 13 was a long way from 1324. And no one had ever even scratched the surface. So here I'm doing it, and they're going, "No, the clock must have broke." And in New York City in the rain, I ran 1286, and it took them forever to announce the time because they couldn't believe the time. No, the watch must have broke. It can't be possible. He can't run that fast. So they rounded that one up to 13 flat. I go to Jamaica, the same Cuban, he false starts twice. And so he's out of the race. I said, no, put him in the race because I'm mad because, he jumped the last week. No, I want this guy in the race. He's supposed to be so good. I want him in the race. And so we run the race. I run away from everybody. Everybody there has me 12:8, whatever. The clock was 12:82. They didn't announce that time for like 45 minutes or so.
Woo.
And the next thing you know, they just gave it a hand time of 13 flat, something like that, because they said the clock malfunctioned. And I'm just like, every time I'm running fast, the clock malfunctions. So that's the fastest I ever ran. I know I could have run faster, but I never got credit until 2 years later when they finally gave it to me.
In
Today, you
19,
run the 13, they give it to you automatically. But back then,
mm-hmm.
it hadn't been done before, so it must be a mistake.
It was that race was too fast. But let's go back to Jamaica a little bit. Tell me a little bit about that race. Who do you remember while competing in Jamaica? Tell me some of the names of the people that you would remember competing against or who was a part of that track meet.
Well, Donald Corey was there. Uh, Bertrand Cameron,
Bert Cameron,
yeah,
right?
was there. Uh, uh, the Dame.
Was Aintley Crawford there?
Hazel Crawford was there. Yeah, he's from Haiti.
From
But
actually Trinidad and Tobago.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Mhm.
what's She lives in Italy now. She's your famous 200 meter female.
Lilith Hodges?
Her, but I just saw her in Zurich. Man, she was always she's winning gold medals and silver medals. She ran until she's like in her 40s.
Merlin, what's that?
Erling Ati. Yeah,
Merlin Ati.
yeah,
Okay, Merlin.
yeah.
Oh
Merlin
yes, oh
Ati was
yes, oh
there.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. And then I was always friends with Herb Kenley. He was always showing up at the meet. He wasn't running; he was retired by then. But
Hmm.
he was a very avid supporter of mine when I was coming up as a youngster. Actually, he was, he was always saying kind things and encouraging things to me, and I loved seeing him everywhere I would go. I'd see him, and I just, was fond memories of him. Just being very supportive of my Guy Abraham from Panama was there. James Jilks, they were running. Yeah, it was just
It
phenomenal.
was a full house.
Yeah, yeah. And back then, some it's debatable in some people's minds, but I think a lot of Jamaicans would agree. This track and field was extremely popular, and we may not have had the money, but we were competitive. We gave it our all. Not saying that the athletes today don't, but I meant across the board. Like Jamaican, it was a culture and a pastime. In America, it was a culture and a pastime. And so I've always had fond respect of all of my Jamaican counterparts because I knew how much it meant to them, you know, and because it meant that much to me.
Yeah.
And
It is a big part. Track and field is a huge part of our culture. Big part of our culture.
right. And it's, I think, I could be wrong, but it's probably a huge responsibility too. Once you get to that international level as a Jamaican representing your country,
Hmm.
you're carrying the mantle of, you're on the shoulders of so many greats that have come before you
Hmm.
that you should want to, represent to the best of your ability. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. And before we move on, welcome if you're just joining us. Michael Hill is saying those battles between Greg Foster and Skeets were awesome. Awesome indeed. Monica Lewis is here. Albert Lawrence is also here. He's saying, good night, HP and guest. Blessings. I can recall the days at track meets watching Ronaldo, Greg, Willie, and others. Wow,
Willie
some pioneers
Yeah, yeah.
indeed. Lilith Hodges is also in the building. Good
Hi,
night to
Willie.
Lilith. Lilith Hodges and Dorothy Scott Genius is there also in the building. Again,
Nice.
other Jamaican Olympians, Albert Lawrence, Lilith Hodges, Dorothy
Mhm.
Scott. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those names, but
A few of them, yes.
yes, they were
Yes.
actually around in your time representing
Yes.
Jamaica at the highest level also. But going back to you, Skeets, if I can call you that, can I call you Skeets?
Yes, you may.
Let us talk a little bit about your international career. When you think back, what was tougher for you, the grind of college, or stepping into the international stage, which you would consider tougher?
International was far more challenging.
Mhm.
In college, it's like anything else. Once you know who your competitors are, your sense of comfort or lack thereof is developed. So obviously, I knew who all my competitors in America was. I knew where I stood. Obviously, I was at the top. Um, and the only thing I could judge my talents against Europeans were what they were running statistically and what I was running. So I knew on paper, obviously, I was, the best hurdler in the world, but I had to go prove it.
Mhm.
I remember my first time running in England. I fell down, and I rarely had fallen in my career, but I fell down. And no, I didn't fall down. I'm sorry. I hit a hurdle late and was beaten. I got third. And I remember the naysayers of the Brits saying, well, he's not all of that. And, uh, and that was unsettling to me because I didn't really hit hurdles all the time, but it was just something that happened. I don't know if I got too comfortable and just,
A bad day.
yeah, bad day at the office. And I lost. And, so I didn't embrace it. I understood why. See, one of the things I always um, took great pride in is like, it's one thing to get beaten by someone else. It's another thing to get beaten by yourself. And so it was rare that I ever got beat by someone else. So it was always something that I did, which is very gratifying, even though you don't like the loss, but you know that it wasn't mano a mano. It was just something, loss of concentration or something that I did. They didn't beat me, I beat myself. And maybe that's just my way of thinking to keep myself focused and stay positive. And so, and then I had markers. So if someone beat me, they're on that bulletin board and they were going to pay that price because I didn't want anybody to think they could truly beat me. They got lucky or something happened, but you can't beat me. And so that went around as I went from country to country. Um, Maybe within 3 or 4 races, people started recognizing that this kid is pretty good. And confidence is a dangerous weapon, as you know. So when you get confident, and in this case, when I become a master of my craft and my technique, that was setting me apart from pretty much everybody in the world. I had better technique than most everybody out there. I was faster than a lot of people thought I was, and so and then I had a kill or be killed attitude and mindset.
You were Mr. Smooth.
Yeah, a lot of people say it looked like I wasn't even trying sometimes, but that's how I was taught, to become one with the hurdle, don't fight the hurdle. And so, because it's a beautiful thing, it's an art form. And so, yeah, why knock down hurdles and be all over the place? That's not how I was taught. That's not how the event should be run. And that's probably why I became so well known and maybe famous during that time is that um, people love the way I hurdled. There are people that have come behind me that have run faster, but they don't look as graceful as me. And
I've
so,
heard that. I've heard
yeah,
that.
so they're not, you know, they're not the same. Then it's not received the same. the way I did it versus the way they do it today. So, I just say, well, I'm just glad I was born when I was born.
1979, you were IAAF World Cup champion and also the Pan Am Games champion. You were like the favorite going into the 1980 Olympic Games. Of course, there was a boycott. Your country did not go. How did you feel about that? How did that affect your career, not being able to go to the Olympic Games and the highest level for track and field? How did you feel about that?
It destroyed me emotionally. You train for 4 years for the utopia of track and field, the Olympic Games, the only platform that we can, validate who we are to the world, the only opportunity that if you are to get any kind of financial gain, it'll come from, that gold medal. And what was really painful about it is when the United States, Jimmy Carter, talked about a boycott. Obviously, everybody was devastated and hoped and prayed that it didn't happen. And then President Carter allowed the 1980 Winter Olympians to go to the Olympics.
Mm.
And that's where we had the miracle on ice when the American hockey team beat the Russians, who were all professionals, and our team was collegiates. And that's when they said, "Do you believe in miracles?" And Americans had won. And I'm all motivated because I'm like, oh, they got to go. I guess we're going to go because we didn't boycott across the board. And then he still, upheld the boycott for the Summer Olympians. I was very upset about it. One, I thought it was a bias taking place, because most people that did the Winter Olympics didn't look like a lot of the Summer Olympians. And so I'm just like, what is going on here? And so that hurt more than anything because that was like a tease and a setup, right? And then, so we didn't go. So we had the 1980 trials. And even though we were talking about a boycott, I was still holding out hope that there's a chance that we could go. So the only chance I can go is I got to make the U.S. Olympic team. And I'm not going to miss this moment because I might not get a chance ever again. So I went to the trials. I was a favorite. I won the trials. So at least I can say I'm an Olympian, in 1980 Olympics. And we didn't go. And then on the heels of that, the following year, the Eastern Bloc countries were threatening to retaliate for the 84 Olympic Games. And I'm just going, are you kidding me? I'm going to train another 4 years?
But this is right in your country. 1984 was in
Yeah.
your country.
Yeah. So I knew that we weren't going to boycott our own games, but I didn't know how widespread the Eastern Bloc it would be felt. So it might not be the games that we all think it's going to be, even though it's in our country. And I was falling out of love with the sport because track and field was free. I could run freely, I could express myself freely, and it was so much fun doing that. And then now politics in my country, at least, were starting to take away that joy and that fun that I was having, because now what am I training for? And then it also coincided with me graduating college in 1981. And then there's a second talk of a boycott. And I'm like, well, there's no way I'm even making any money. So I need to find something to do here if they're going to keep doing this to me.
Hence the switch.
Hence the switch.
And we're going to go to the switch. But before we get there, you are one of the recipients who receive a congressional gold medal. Tell me a little bit about that. Did that mean anything to you?
So I was raised right. So I went to the White House, and did all the handshaking to the very president and first lady who were part of the boycott. I had never been to the White House. And so that wasn't, anytime you meet a president, I guess it's an honor. So I went to that with the rest of my Summer Olympian teammates. And in doing so, we got that symbolic congressional medal.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was, symbolism. It could never replace the actual participation. I tell people all the time, I'm an Olympian that never got to walk into an Olympic stadium as an Olympian. and then I have to correct. It took me a while. It took me like 20 years to ever even want to talk about 1980. Honestly, I would never talk about it. And then I had to start painfully correcting people when they'd introduce me as, you know, gold medal winner, da 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 da. I broke all these, and I say, no, I actually never got to go to the Olympic Games. But you won everything. I go, I'm flattered, but the Olympics wasn't one of them.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
That must have been heartbreaking because so did that medal help to heal even a little bit of your pain?
Not in the least. No, it was hollow at best. Um, what healed my pain is that years later, there have been athletes such as Roger Kingdom, a two-time Olympic gold medalist, Alan Johnson, Olympic gold medalist, all these other people, and I'm more known in my country than they are, and I never went to an Olympic Games. When an American football player jumps over a would-be tackler, they'll say he just did a Renaldo Nehemiah, and I'm just like, wow. So the fact that my dominance in the way in which I did it in that period of time left such an indelible impression on so many people when it comes to track and field. People have won medals that I haven't won. They've broken records and run faster than I have, but I'm the most well known American hurdler in history. And so you find out what people think about you when they no longer have to cheer for you, right? That tells you if you played the game right. And so I guess my greatest accomplishment is that um, people will remember me for what I accomplished, and not only for what I accomplished, but how I carried myself, right? And I represented myself, my family, my culture in the way that it was supposed to be represented. And that's probably more valuable than any gold medal.
How do you feel about it now, today in 2025, as the sport go on? How do you feel about that opportunity that you did not get?
I think there's a hint of sadness, like, wow, I wonder what that experience would really feel like. You know, I would have loved to have experienced that. But then I take solace in saying, yeah, but I could have gone as an odds-on favorite, and I could have hit a hurdle and lost. Would that have made me any less of a great hurdler, right? Because on any given day, anything can happen. You know, things don't always line up properly. So, you know, I don't want to think that I would not have won, but you never know. Based on the winning time in 1980, uh, it was 13, either 13-3, 13-4. So clearly I know I would have won based on that time. But um, you know, I've been to so many Olympic games as an agent and a spectator that I always, there's a part of me that's like, wow, this is pretty cool to walk in that stadium with all the pageantry and all the colors and flags of all the other, you know, because I knew what it felt like when I went to the Pan American Games. I knew what it felt like when, you know, I represented the United States at the World Cup. You know, that the weight of that on you, and then rising to the occasion, and the honor and the satisfaction that you feel like, wow, I did my country good. You know, I did right by my country. So I never got a chance to do that. So I am a hint. There's a hint of envy there, um, but I can tell you one thing: not all, but a good nucleus of today's athletes. I don't think they really appreciate the struggle, you know, because the struggle.
They're getting the gifts before they even compete.
Right, right. They're born into it, so most of it's not their fault, but it's also attitude. You know, when you study and you become, you know, a historian, you have greater appreciation for where you are right now and how you got there. Most athletes, with a few exceptions, their history goes back about 5 years, and then after that, you're yesterday's news. And I'm just like, wow. I've given out awards at events to the hurdlers who have no clue who I am.
Mm,
No clue.
mm, 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 mm. You just hit a sore point. And just today, I was having a conversation with someone that the younger athletes have no clue who the trendsetters are, who the pioneer are. But what I want to ask you though is, whose fault is that? Who do you think is, should it be the younger generation that seek out the knowledge, or should it be that we have a system to educate them about? Because for a lot of our younger generations, they think that our Jamaica's dominance or influence in track and field started with Usain Bolt, Shelley and Fraser Price, Veronica Campbell Brown. But this thing is coming from way back. Herb McKinley, George Roden, Arthur
Decades
Wint,
on decades before they were even thought of.
before they were even thought of.
Yeah.
Donald Curry, all those people.
It's everyone's fault, right? Our federations, our our legends. There should be workshops or whatever you want to call it that people should understand the evolution and how they got there and where we are today and how they're benefiting from the sacrifices of so many who made the sport so popular for them to be able to earn livings or to get whatever they get from it. And it's part of the athletes themselves. They could care less about history. It's what is it in it for me. you know as I said, they're just takers. They're not giving anything, they're just taking. And when there's nothing left to take, they won't be around. So that's a sad commentary for all of us. Maybe the Jamaican heritage, and I know the US heritage. And we think, and fortunately, that your country and my country, we breed talent, right? And so, but that's by default, right? It's not anything that they're doing. It's obviously it's by default. Is the bloodlines in our countries are run rich and deep. But at some point, we have to do more than just say we want you to run, jump fast. We want you to make a difference. But the only way you can make a difference is understand the obligation you have to represent all those who put you in this position.
Mm-hmm.
Anything short of that is sad. It really is. Um, and they're so,
Mm.
yeah, that's my position, you know.
I totally agree with you, Skeets. I really agree with you. Before we move on, Lily Hodges is saying he made the hurdles look so easy with a lot of grace and precision. I look forward to see him run back in the days. Amazing,
Thank
amazing. I wish I had seen it myself. Michael Hill is saying that's the greatest hurdler, never got a chance to win an Olympic medal, and it was heartbreaking for a lot of us. So there are a lot of people who are actually carrying your pain. I've heard Rainford Hunter speak about the thing. He was trying to find words to describe you with the hurdles or in the hurdles, and he was just going on, and I was just learning, because that's what I'm here for, to learn. And it is just amazing, amazing. 1981, you came back, did not go to the 1980 Olympics. 1981, you came back, you broke the world record.
you.
You broke the world record. What kept you going after that disappointment just a year, less than a year ago, I would say? What kept you going after you were denied Olympic glory?
I wasn't going to let one race define me, basically. So I embarked on a journey that every race was going to be my Olympic Games, and I was going to show the world what they missed. And part of it was anger, which I had to, temper and control. Had to be controlled anger. And the other one was that I wanted there to be no doubts in anyone's mind that I was the best hurdler. Period. In stop. Full stop. That whoever won that gold medal, it was like an afterthought. That they all knew who the best hurdler in the world was. There wasn't even a question. So every race I was running in 81 was to try to break the 13-second barrier. Like just I said I have to do that in order to put my name up there amongst every great Olympic gold medalist ever, and do something that no man had ever done. They didn't even think was possible. Um, and I was breaking world records in training, so it was just a matter of putting it together in a race, and it culminated in Zurich, Switzerland. But yeah, that was my Olympic Games at that moment. Yes.
Indeed, indeed. I must tell you that you had some Jamaican fans back then. I think you still do have them because even Saunders is saying, Vonnie M, I can still see his graceful motion over those hurdles. Lilith is saying she used to look forward to see you running the hurdles, and he did it, of course, with grace. Darty Scott is saying America boycotted the 1980 games because Russia had invaded Afghanistan. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Ah,
One of my early dreams from running track and field. I remember when I went to the Madison Square Garden for the Millrose Games, indoor games, the world's
mhm,
greatest arena in indoors. And I remember going there, and the hurdles were always first because they had to open up the track,
mhm,
and then after the hurdles, the hurdles were first around 6:30. And I remember looking at this 18,000, 19,000 seat arena, and there might be like 3,000 people there. And I remember saying to myself, one day this place is going to be packed to see my hurdle race, because then everybody came in time to watch the mile. And the mile was a big thing back then, in the 1500. And I just said, if I have anything to do with it, they're going to want us. It's going to be must CV. That 7 seconds, you won't want to miss it. And that came to fruition within a year or two. That by the time my first heat showed up, it'd be 16,000, 17,000 people. And the same attitude I had outdoors. It's like, yes, everyone wants to get there to watch. Now, I had great nemesis, Greg Foster and all that made it
mhm.
exciting, but it was the hurdles, right?
Yeah.
People came there to watch the hurdles. Yes, everybody wanted to see who's the fastest human in 100 meters, but I rivaled them. You know, they wanted to see those hurdles. The sprinters wanted to watch us. Everybody wanted to watch the hurdles. And so my greatest satisfaction was while I was running, I did my event as well as my sport justice, and that I was blessed to be a blessing to so many people that I'm so grateful and humbled by. But that was my whole. That's the reason why I got into this thing. That's the reason why I do everything, is to make a difference. I don't just go through the motions.
Your legacy is not a normal one. Let me say good night to Sprint Tech, who is also in the building, one of Jamaica's track and field clubs, Sprint Tech. Good night. But let us look at some of your achievements. We're not going to look at everything. 1982 to 1985, you were playing football, the NFL, with the San Francisco 49ers. 1985, for the 1984 season, you became Super Bowl champion with your team. 1979, you were IAAF World Cup champion. 1979, the Pan American Games champion. 1978 to 1979, NCAA champion 3 times. 1981, the first man to run the 110-meter hurdles under 13 seconds, 12.93. You were national champion multiple times, number one for 4 straight years. Amazing. Penn Relays MVP, competing for the University of Maryland. Hall of Famer, world records multiple times. The 50-meter hurdles in 1979, the 55-meter hurdles 1979, 110-meter hurdles 1979, the 50 yards hurdles 1981, 100-meter hurdles 1981, 50 yards again 1982, 60 yards, and you kept going and going. Can I see your Super Bowl ring? I've never seen. Wow, look at that, guys. His Super Bowl ring. And we're going to segue into this man transitioning from track to, let me see that ring again. Wow, amazing. 1985 for the 1984 season. No, that's something you don't see every day. You don't see that every day. I have heard even Jamaican track and field athletes talk about switching from track or field to the NFL. You've never played football in college, based
No.
on my research. What was the motivation to be drafted in the NFL?
Well, I did have football in my background. I played in high school and I was recruited for college. I just was small. And so I didn't think I was large enough to play at that time. So, being an American, football is America's pastime. So it's
Yeah.
not like it's unfamiliar with most people. And I, like a lot of young boys, I played football in Pot Warner in high school and all that. So I remember envisioning myself as, one of these receivers catching the ball when I was a little kid. Never in my wildest dreams did I think it would ever happen. And so when I was at the Superstars competition, it's a competition in America that puts, America's best athletes from all the different sports, baseball, football, you name it. And they come together in Florida and you compete in 7 out of 10 events. And only event as a track and field athlete I wasn't able to do. If I was a sprinter, I couldn't run the 100. I had to run 800. If I wasn't any of those, I could run both. So you pick 7 out of 10 and you're competing against all these other athletes. Some are even international athletes. And so while there, I met Dwight Clark from the 49ers, who they had just won their first Super Bowl in 1982. And so he marveled over my talent, saying, "Man, you have phenomenal talent, man. How come you don't play football?" And I said, "Oh, I didn't play in college. I wouldn't get drafted. What's the point?" And he says, "My coach, Bill Walsh, was his name. He would love somebody like you. You have so much talent. You are just an incredible athlete." I didn't take him seriously, but later that evening, my phone rang in my hotel room, and a gentleman on the other end asked my name, Renaldo. I said, "Yes." He goes, "This is Coach Bill Walsh." I thought Dwight was playing a joke on me. And so I hung up. And then, like an hour later, he called back and he says, "Renaldo Nehemiah, serious, this is Coach Bill Walsh." And I said, "Well, if you're Coach Bill Walsh, call my agent." And I hung up on him again. And then later that evening, my agent called me and he says, "Renaldo, did you hang up on Bill Walsh?" And I go, "That was Bill Walsh?" He goes, "Yes, he called you 3 times." I just started shaking my head. And make a long story short, we accepted their intrigue and their interest in me, and they flew me out to San Francisco, and we had these private workouts. And then before I even got back on a plane to come home, other NFL teams knew about it. And so I was flying around the country with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys, all these different teams working out. And then it came down to Bill Walsh, who was an avid fan of mine, was willing to offer me a contract. So were the other teams. But Bill Walsh knew that once I signed as an amateur, I would be banned and I would no longer be able to run track if it didn't work out in football. So Bill Walsh decided he was going to guarantee all 4 years of my contract. That way, if it didn't work out in year 1 or 2, I would still have 2 more years of guaranteed contract. And that would give me time to try to find a job. And so as I signed that contract, I was immediately banned from track and
Wow.
went to the 49ers.
Wow. You had a personal best of 10.24 at that time in the 100. The 110-meter hurdles, you had sub 13 seconds personal best. Which of your track attributes got you drafted in the NFL as a wide receiver? Do you think track,
Well,
do you think it helped?
well, speed kills. Not everybody has it, right? So, I ran 4.2 over hurdles for 40 yards. So 40-yard dash is the barometer that they measure people, how fast they can run the 40. And most people can run 4.2. Not most, but most people run 4.4, 4.5. Exceptional is 4.3. I don't even think they had a 4.2 at that time. And I could run that over hurdles. and they're like, but they saw my agility. I could catch the ball, and I guess Bill Walsh figured that with the proper training and assistance in their system, I could be excellent and help them out. So um, he took a chance and he signed me. But I think no one had seen that kind of speed before. Period. Right. And so the effortlessness which I was running past people even in practice, they hadn't seen that. I used to think that I felt like a show pony at practice sometimes. Just watch him run and watch no one can keep up with him, and then see me catch the ball. And I think they were enamored with that, and then they just marveled over it. Well, if we can make this happen, this could be pretty good. And so I'm thankful to this day for the late Bill Walsh, who was a fan of mine, who took a chance on me and gave me the opportunity. And unbeknownst to so many people, I didn't turn my back on track and field. Football allowed me to continue to be an athlete and now get paid for it, because I was
Mm-hmm.
a college graduate and I needed a job. And athletics, track and field was an amateur sport. And so if there
Yes.
was any form of payment, you were banned anyway. So Bill Walsh basically sustained my athletic career, and I was getting paid pretty well to do it. So I thank him for allowing me to continue to be an athlete at the highest level, because I didn't know what was going on with boycotts, right? I was facing two already. So who knew how long this was going to continue?
Wow. You worked out with quite a few teams before signing with the 49ers, Pittsburgh Steelers, Washington Redskins, now Washington Commanders, the Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles, New York Giants, New England Patriots. Why the 49ers?
Well, it's interesting. I wanted to play for the Redskins at the time because I lived here in Maryland. They were in Washington. And I remember my agent, we put the name of the team on a piece of paper to see who would get it right. And it came down to I wanted to play for the 49ers in Washington, but I couldn't do that. It came down to the 49ers, quite frankly, just because I thought that Bill Walsh respected me as an athlete, and my talents. He was a fan of mine. And that was a blessing and a curse, because over the course of my career, I had gotten knocked unconscious my second year into the league, going over the middle to catch a pass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And yeah, it was a devastating hit. And I remember how things changed from that point on. And Bill Walsh brought me into his office one day, and he says, I cannot have the world's greatest hurdler get maimed in this game. So I have to protect you. And I said, well, coach, I know what I signed up for. He goes, no, I have to protect you. And I didn't appreciate it at the time, because here I am giving up running every day, showing off my talent. And now I don't have control over that anymore. The coach is going to put me out there when he thinks I can go out there. There were times when I was playing really well in the game, and he'd take me out, like, just to protect me. And it was really frustrating, because as an athlete, you want to perform.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the greatest form of flattery. I was just immature at the time, not to be able to see it. But as I got away from the game, I had to appreciate this man really understanding that he did not want the world's greatest hurdler to have something devastating happen to him, and he was a part of the reason. So, um, I had great time with the 49ers. Um, when they turned this, it's funny, I got banned in 82, and in 1983, the very next year, the sport goes professional. So now you have guys like Carl Lewis making more money than me, and I'm getting killed. I'm getting killed to make my money. And so, yeah, it
But
was
but before we get there, because you returned to the sport, I think in 1986. But just for some of us who are clueless, like myself, about the sport of football, the only thing I know is a touchdown. If you want me to scream, just it does. I don't care who is the touchdown is for. I just love to see it. What is the responsibility, or what is the job of the wide receiver, which you were?
okay. So the quarterback who gets the ball from the guy in front of him, who's called a center, he goes back and he throws to the wide receiver. And there's usually three of them out on the field. So I was one of the three, and it could be a short pass, a mid-range pass, or a long pass. And so that was my job, to get open, to catch the ball, and run as far as I can or score a touchdown, depending on what the circumstances were. So, and I did get a chance to score multiple touchdowns during my career. So I'm thankful for that. I played with the Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Montana, who was phenomenal. Um, and I played for the best team in the 80s, which was the San Francisco 49ers. They were a dynasty, and I happened to be fortunate and blessed to be on that team during that era. So um, it couldn't have been, I couldn't have played for a better team. Um, and yeah, and they're a great organization. They've stayed in touch over the years, and I still root for them. But they took a chance on me, and
Awesome.
yeah.
And
And
it
Bill Walsh
worked.
protected me the whole time, whether it was in practice or in games. He looked out for me, so I appreciate it.
Super Bowl 19th.
Yes.
Champion. Take us back to that day when you realized that in no time your team will be declared the champion. The 49ers are champions. What was going through your mind? 38 points to the Dolphins 16. What was the celebration like for you? Tell us about that moment.
You're gonna be let down when I tell you the story, because there's always so many stories. So the game was played in Stanford, California, which is basically a home game for us because we're in San Francisco. So it was played at Stanford University, which is about 35 minutes south of where we play. So it was a home game for us. So we got to stay at our own homes. We didn't have to stay in a hotel. But my team was so arrogant and confident. We were 15-1 that year. We were beating everybody. And we were playing the Miami Dolphins. And I remember we went in there and I felt this air of arrogance with my team. Like, there's no way they're going to beat us. We're the best thing walking. And so I'm still looking forward to a celebration if we win. I have my family in, I have 10, 15 people flying in, and this is going to be great. I get to play my first Super Bowl, and we happen to win the Super Bowl. So I'm looking for all of this. There was no champagne or beer in the locker room. There wasn't there wasn't a post party celebration. We
What?
came in, yeah, came in, said, congratulations, guys. And at the time, I didn't understand it, but I did afterwards. He knew that the whole city was going to turn out wherever we went, and it would get out of control. So they had decided that we're going to have a post Super Bowl celebration about a month later. But that didn't do me any good because all my family was there, and everybody was hoping that we'd all get a chance to celebrate. So to say I was disappointed is an understatement. I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
I'm like, this is what it's about? Like all those
Here,
celebrations I read
here
about?
we, here we go again.
Yeah. And I'm like, again, it's taken away from me the one chance I get. And it's so, a month or so later, it was a black tie affair we had. But my family wasn't there. It was just us. And, we had, I had just recently gotten married. But yeah, it wasn't what I wanted it to be, like in that moment, the jubilation, in the celebration, the spontaneity of the celebration. And my family had to tell them all, it's not going to be a party. So we all just had to go out on our own and just be with each other like it was another Sunday. So that's my Super Bowl story. Sorry to
Tell
disappoint.
Tell me a little bit about, someone just brought it up in the conversation, Michael Hill. Tell me about that signature part that you had in the front of your, tell me about it. Is what does it mean? Is there a meaning to it?
It was when I mentioned earlier the first time I saw the hurdles in 1972 Olympic Games, and a gentleman by the name of Rod Milburn, who won the gold medal, had an afro and he had a part in the middle of his head, and I likened that to an air dam, like, and it was so cool, and he was my idol, right? There's always something or someone that you see that you idolize and you want to be like them, and I wanted to be like Rod. I thought it was so cool. I even, part of my technique was kind of copycatted his. I perfected it, but the double arm initially, And so I put a part in the middle of my hair, and I was Rod Milburn too in my mind, and I had that part in my hair. But I will tell you, HP, that it took me forever to get that part out of my head. I remember I let the hair grow in, and you could still see the part. And I was so mad when I was, well into my 30s, and I still have this part showing through my hair. But that was my signature.
Your
That set me
signature.
apart. Yeah, that's what it was about.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you very much for that, Michael Hill. What were some of the, I know in life, in everything, there are challenges, some bigger than some. What were some of the challenges you faced throughout your career? And, how were you able to overcome? You were playing a sport that was an amateur sport, you were playing another sport that was a professional sport. What were some of the challenges?
Well, my initial frustrations through challenges was when I was breaking records, even in college. There were so many corporations that wanted to sponsor me, and it was not permissible. And that was
Mm.
frustrating, because you want to see yourself on a box of a product, and you know, uh, you could do a commercial, but you couldn't get compensated for it. All these things that I just like, why not? Or when I went to the superstars, and you win prize money, and they say, well, you can't keep the prize money, and I'm like, what? And you have to go to court and fight and get a trust fund to put it in a trust fund because they want to take the money from you. Or when I first signed my 5-year contract with Puma for $125,000 a year, which was huge back then, 50,000 of it per year was a sponsorship fee just to let me wear Pumas. So the federation took $50,000 from me over a 5-year period, $250,000, just to say you can wear Pumas. And I'm just like, how is that even fair? And obviously today it doesn't even exist. Whatever you sign for, you get.
Mhm.
But it seemed like I was always had the mindset of a rebel with a cause, right? I've always, and as I told you, I grew up as an inquisitive person. So I'm going to ask that question: why not? Why? Show me why not. One plus one has to equal two. If it doesn't, I have questions and more questions. And so that was the frustration. And then the politics, all these things that I got into track and field because I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. I could do it. I was in control of it. It wasn't on a team. I didn't have to worry about favoritism. If I felt I was better than you, let's line up and we'll find out who's better. I loved all that. But then it came with all of these guardrails, and things that I wasn't enjoying a lot of it, because I just wanted to have the free art form expression to show the world what I can do. We even had to get a travel permit from our federation to go. The federation, if they said no, you couldn't even go. And I'm just like, what is going on? So
Wow.
those were some of the frustrations that I was facing all the time because people wanted to partner with me, and they would come to me or my representative, and it was big no. And if you do this, you're going to be banned and you're going to be done and you won't be able to do this. And it proved sometimes overwhelming to the point where I never wanted my light to go out, right? My joy to be stolen, and that's what ultimately was happening to me. I didn't sign up to have all these guardrails all around me. I wanted just to freely have fun and run and show the world why I love what I do, and that started to be a problem, at various levels. The more I accomplished, the more challenges that were coming forth, and yeah, it was something that I wasn't quite ready for.
You returned to the sport 1986 to 1981. Why come back to a sport that was amateur? I guess by then
It was pro by then in
it was
'86.
pro by then, but the money in the NFL was bigger. Why even come back to track?
One, I wasn't going to get hurt, and have my head knocked off, or knee damage, or my. The reason I didn't go back to football is because in my very last year I got injured and tore L4 and L5 of my back, and ended up years later having to have surgery to repair that.
Mm.
So, and as I said earlier, I was knocked unconscious. I had dislocated fingers, I had knee surgery one day, 1 year, and the only thing left was my back. And I'm like, well, I hurt my back. What else can I give up? And I was still young enough. I was thinking I was 26 when I got reinstated. And I just said, okay, I played the game. I caught some touchdowns. I won a Super Bowl ring. I made a decent amount of money, but now I can go back to the sport I truly love. And now I can continue to earn a living from it. Again, it wasn't that simple either, HB, because the very president of the IAAF, Primo Nebbiolo, who banned me, insisted on my return, my first race back, be in his native country of Italy, in Rovereto. And that was a bittersweet pill because we had this huge international press conference, and he told the whole world the biggest lie, Pinocchio lie you can tell, that he was always my fan and he always supported me, and he's so happy that I chose his country to run my first race back. And I had to sit there
Wow.
and grin and bear that lie. He cost me 4.5 years of my career, and thousands, hundreds of thousands in legal fees to boot. But that's the kind of stuff that was happening. Um, and I will be honest with you, when I came back, as much as I was happy to be paid to run, because I was making money that I never even thought or imagined I could make, the sport was different for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a business, and I didn't know it as a business. I knew it as a love, something that I freely did. Now I have my agent negotiating on behalf, and he's going on. You got to pay him this, and you got to fly him this, and I'm just like, what is going on? And then everybody around me, it was all about money, 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 money. Uh, I was an old school guy, right? And so I was kind of a fish out of water. I mean, I adjusted, but I'd never embraced that mindset because I felt the athletes around me had changed, right? They weren't old school athletes like I was. I was coming into this new era of athlete, not their fault, but they didn't love it like I did, and they didn't have
For
the
the love of it, right?
right for the love of it, and they didn't have the camaraderie that we had. I mean, I used to hang out with the Jamaicans while I was at meets and hang out with them and talk to them, and now everybody was isolated. Everybody took their own corner, and it was them
And
against
that's
themselves all the
and
time.
that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of that now. And it's funny that you mentioned, that you would hang out with the Jamaicans, because I've interviewed a lot of Jamaicans here, because this podcast, the legacy is really to capture the Jamaican athlete story and wider stories, and I've heard about friendships for over 50 years. It
Yeah,
is unbelievable.
yeah,
People are godparents. They're godparents of each other's children. They're still friends. They still go to track meets together. It is unbelievable.
yeah. During my travels, when I'd see one of my friends from Jamaica, we hug and talk and reminisce like it was just yesterday because that's what we did. We grew up. It was a one big family, and it's again. I'm not going to blame them. It's just different, you
It's
know.
different, yeah. Evolution, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that's good or not, but it's yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. But Spring Tech is saying this interview is very educational. It makes you realize how much of a trailblazer Ronaldo was. Indeed, 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 indeed. And I can now officially say I know somebody who won the Super Bowl. But just to go back a little bit, I am trying not to bring up the 1980 Olympic or the Olympic Games, but do you think if you had concentrated on track, you would have experienced the Olympic and World Championship glory?
Without a doubt. I'm not saying this, although I echo it. Many of my contemporaries, i.e., Colin Jackson from Great Britain, has said to me many a times, Ronaldo, the world never got to see you at your best. You ran 1293 at 22 years of age. You weren't even in your prime. We might be still chasing your world records had you not been forbidden to run. And I used to say that privately, that no one got to see me at my best, and that's what outdated equipment, right, and technology, you know. I had to run on what they're running on today, and it was more like a hobby when I was running. Right today, it's a profession. If I had those conditions, yeah, they'd still be chasing my records.
Here's a tough question for you. Any regrets?
No, I've had plenty of time to think about it. The only regret would come about if I had a crystal ball, and the crystal ball said, "Ronaldo, don't go to play football because next year your sport's turning pro, and you'll be one of the most sought after athletes." Right? At the time I did that, I was even larger than Carl Lewis. So, but again, I can't go. I can't turn back time. I can only face what was in front of me. What was in front of me was the 1980 boycott and an impending boycott in front of me, and the sport's amateur, and an opportunity to get paid to be an athlete, significant sums of money. Um, and here's the other thing: how many other athletes like Edwin Moses couldn't have done what I did? Carl Lewis wouldn't have done what I did. Um, I had the talent to do that. They saw the talent in me, and it was an opportunity they offered me. Um, if it was that simple, why haven't that many, after me done it? It's not that simple. It's not that easy. So I'm just thankful that I was outside of the Olympic Games. I had won everything that I could win that the sport presented before me. So, you know, would I trade a Super Bowl ring for an Olympic gold medal? Without a doubt. Without a doubt. But remember,
Wow.
the Olympic gold medal was in 1980. The Super Bowl ring was 1984. So I would have done it 4 years before that and still left to go play football. Had I,
Indeed.
yeah.
Wow.
Because then I
Michael,
would have been an Olympic champion, still an amateur, and the 49ers come calling. I'd have had the gold medal and gone to the 49ers and played Super Bowl.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Amazing. Michael Hill is asking a question here, and I think it will segue into our next session. He's asking, who does Keith like in the hurdles from today's generation? That's a good question. Thanks, Michael. In the hurdles, when you look at the hurdles in this era, let's say the 21st century, because that's where my next question is going to go. Who do you see that you like that look close to what you delivered in your time?
I don't have a favorite at all. There's a lot of parity, uh, but parity because no one has taken over, no one's dominating. Grant Holloway did early on, but people figured out how to beat him, and he's not the hurdler in these last year and a half that he used to be. Uh, the American just won the world championships, but he's up and down and inconsistent. So they can all run. Everyone's running faster across the board, but no one is separating themselves. Jamaica
True.
has several athletes that are phenomenal. Broadmoor, all these guys can run, but they can't consistently replicate the performance. And that was my strength is consistency. You know, I might be maybe at most a tenth off, but usually a few hundreds off. You know, these guys can run Tench ran 12.8, and then he loses a race running 13.3. That's 5/10 of a second. That should never happen. And so everyone wants to run under 13. And I'm like, how about just running 13.0 or 13.1 all the time so that you know where you are? And on any given day, you might be able to run faster, but you have a barometer, a measuring stick. And so that's the sad part about the hurdle event. I'm happy that they're all running fast, but who are you going to put your money on?
Good question. That's a very good question. The
Yeah.
hurdles, though, it is tough. When I was doing my prediction show for the World Championship, I did not know who to bet on because it is so unpredictable. And as you said, no one person is consistently dominating.
Exactly.
Anybody can get beaten on a given day.
Correct.
So it
Right.
was hard. It
And I
was
guess that
hard.
makes the sport entertaining and
Mm-hmm.
exciting because now you don't go in like, oh, he's got it made or she's got it made. Well, there are certain women that I know have it made, but Sydney McLaughlin has it made, but very,
Indeed.
very few. And then, um, you know, Elaine Thompson, Shelly Ann Fraser, they had it made. Sharika, a few years ago had it made. But no one's receiving the baton of some of the former greats. Because they're all over the place. It's healthy for the sport, right? It makes it more of a
Yeah,
global.
it's more competitive, as we would say. But when you look at the 21st century, we've had some real great talent coming out of track and field. Jamaica, the United States, we've seen Africa, we've seen Europe turning up. But I want to speak specifically on Usain Bolt, what he has done. What are your thoughts on what he has done throughout his time in the sport, and even after being retired? Your thoughts on the talent that he was.
So I had the privilege of witnessing the birthing, if you will, of Usain. I was in Greece, one of the last races of the season when he ran his first 100 meters. And myself and another colleague, we looked at each other and said, "What's he doing in 100? I guess he wants to do some speed work." So, he ran 10:03, 10:07 or something like that. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty good run for big fella. Didn't think anything of it. Fast forward a few months later, 5 months, whatever later, I'm in New York City, New York Games, whatever it is, and he breaks the world record. And I looked and I go, wow, they got a problem on their hands right now. What I will say is that Usain is a one in a lifetime generational athlete. He has the height, the size, the mindset, uh, the competitive spirit, everything lined up perfectly for this man. But even as great as he is as a talent, he was a great ambassador for our sport, and that's what I enjoyed a lot. I spoke to him a couple of times. He probably didn't really know me. He knew that I was Justin Gatlin's agent, so he knew.
And we're going to talk about
Yeah,
that.
I was representing his nemesis, but standing from afar, and looking him who was carrying the mantle of the sport, I couldn't have been prouder of a young man who said all the right things, was never controversial,
True.
gave the people everything they wanted and more, and he was just incredible to watch. And so, um, our sport has so much to be indebted to him uh, for what he accomplished and what he meant to the sport. There'll never be anyone like him. There's not too many 6'5" sprinters typically, so he was a rarity. Um, we have Noah Lyles, but as good and or as great as he wants to be, he'll never be Usain. I always say, when you're the first, you're the first. There's
Yes.
nothing you can do. Everybody else, you're coming afterwards. So that bar was set this high. You might get close, even if you equal, even surpass. It's how you do it that indelible impression that you leave on people, that wow factor. Uh, we'll never see another Usain like that, and at least I don't think so. It could happen, but with all the intangibles that he brought to the table,
Mhm.
showmanship, competitiveness, athleticism, all that wrapped up in one.
And he had very good work ethics also.
Yeah,
He was a professional. When you see him out there, he was doing his job.
he didn't go out there to lose. That's for sure.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
So
And
not saying
he was interacting with fans. He loves his fans.
yeah. What you get that when you have a high level of confidence too,
Mm. Yeah.
because he knows what he's there to do, so he's not distracted. He can,
Mhm.
he actually gets more energy from the fans.
Talking about big names, I mean, you're now an agent, or you're moving away from being a sport agent. When you talk about names like Sanya Richards, Justin Gatlin, Alyssa Felix, Shakari Richardson, and more. As a former athlete, you know what the demands are. You know what the athletes want. How did this help you to now serving the athlete? How did being an athlete help you to be able to serve these athletes now the way you did?
I think for the most part, I had credibility, so when I said things, I at least could relate to them. They weren't experiencing anything that I hadn't experienced. Um, Now they have and had more things to deal with uh, socially and commercially than I did. So I understood that. But um, I always told everybody I wore two hats. One, I was an athlete to the core, but I knew I had to do a job. So I had to handle their business. But I also knew what they felt like. And so when they lost, I felt I lost because I hurt for them because I know how much it meant for the athletes, and not everybody can win, obviously. And so that was important is to, try to, when I spoke to someone who didn't have a good day, see if they could identify what happened and build from that and turn that into a positive as opposed to just thinking that they were defeated. And then I had to understand that I had to treat everyone at least outwardly equal, right? First place versus sixth place. I had to treat that person who got sixth place as if they were as important as that person that won it. Um, I didn't want them to ever think that they didn't matter because they did matter. And not everybody's at the same place. Some people evolve right away. Some people are late bloomers, right? So you have to stay with those people. And I had people that flourished at different points in their careers, and um, so I never wanted them to feel that they weren't good enough. They were good enough. I also only represented people that were somewhat of a reflection of me, meaning that,
Explain.
well, most of my career, I didn't represent people who didn't value their education because I knew that most of them could not make a living. They couldn't live off of what they were earning for the rest of their lives. And so they would need something to fall back on. And so I wanted them to complete that because I felt if you could complete that, then you'd learn how to complete other things in life. And if you didn't complete it and you quit on it, then it would be you're more inclined to want to quit. And so that's not always a good mindset to have. As things started rapidly developing as far as financially and more monies were being offered, and athletes like Shakira Richardson, even Justin Gatlin, were able to give up their scholarships and turn professional, I had to start saying, okay, well, I can't stop someone from earning a living. And I would hope that they would still value their education and maybe take online classes or when they're finished, go back. Didn't make them bad people. It's just something that I wanted for them. But it just became more challenging and less realistic that might happen. And so then it was okay, let's learn as much as we can from a business acumen so that the monies that you are earning that they can go to work and preserve as much of it as you can. So um, and then they weren't flamboyant because I wasn't flamboyant, you know. Uh, they weren't destructive. Uh, they were, pretty wholesome people, meaning that they didn't have alcohol problems or any other social vices. Because at the end of the day, every client of mine, male and female, I had to say to them very early on, my name means more to me than what you could ever accomplish. And I cannot let you or anyone take that away from me because once my name is tarnished, I can't ever get it back. And so I was representing my father's name. And that meant more to me than any accomplishment they could have. And and I said it in a very nice, but I said it in a very instructive way so that they would understand that that should be how they feel too.
When you're representing an athlete and there is a scandal, how does that impact you as the person that you are?
Yeah, I've had a few. Obviously, some of you, all of you, what you know. Um, One is disappointing. That's, I'd be lying if I didn't say that. Two, you have an inkling that something's a foul somehow, some way. You don't know it and you just pray against it. And then finally, you have to understand that you have forged relationships, not just with that client, but with their family. And now they become a part of your family. And so I had to take the mindset that there's no perfect person walking around. We all fall short, right, of God's glory, and we make mistakes. And so I didn't desert people. I stuck in and hung in there with them and fought the battle as long as they were trying to repair and acknowledge what happened. And so, and I used to have my peers, my other agent friends said, how can you still work with this person? And I said, you're in this business long enough, one of your athletes are going to run afoul and you're going to have to come to this crossroads. Are you going to kick them to the curb or are you going to stay with them and say it was more about how much money you can make off of them and it was more about developing them? And every one of them over the years had to face that same crossroads. And I used to look at them and I go, not that easy, is it? Not that easy, unless you're just a heartless person. So you don't want it to happen, um, but you show them that you're imperfect. I know that I'm imperfect, and so as long as you're trying to better yourself through the process, I'm with you. And if you don't want to better yourself, I'll just pray for you, and we may have to go separate ways. So, for the most part, even when I have faced those hiccups and they were hard and unfortunate,
Yes.
I didn't desert anybody. I did not. They needed,
Awesome.
and I wouldn't do that.
Awesome, awesome. You're still building your legacy. As I said before, your legacy as an athlete is not normal. You've moved from different levels, different stages. You're now guiding. You've been guiding athletes and shaping their future to become professionals, ambassadors, etc. But how important is it for an athlete to understand that they are a brand? How do you get your athletes to understand that? Because I still think that there are athletes who they haven't recognized the business of sport and recognize that they're a brand. How do you get your clients to understand this conversation?
One, if that they're able to receive the message or messages that I'm conveying to them, right? If they're paying attention to what I'm saying. Uh, Two, it's a maturity level, right? A lot of times it's the immaturity that keeps them from receiving or thinking that it won't end in preparation and all that. Um, I treat everyone that I have managed. I was old enough to be their parent, right? So I become a surrogate parent in my mindset, and so I'm trying to protect them and insulate them from pitfalls that I know others have had along my way when I was an athlete. And so, and I try to tell them, and you heard this before, I tell them what they need to know, not what they want to hear. And not everyone is mature enough to receive that, right?
True.
I've had athletes say to me, you act like you were never an athlete, you're kind of hard on us. And I'm like, well, first of all, in most of my cases, they were Black Americans. So I already know the stigma attached to people of color. And so I'm trying to let them understand you're not just an athlete, you're typecast in this way and folks already believe that you're going to be ignorant, belligerent, all the negative adjectives that you can describe. And so I don't want you to become a part of that statistic at all. I want you to be the exception, not the norm. And so, and life is pretty good. If you played it by the rules and you're in control of your own physical destiny, you'll live a pretty good life. Life is pretty good. Things are going well for you. I've never understood many years, HP, when people are doing well and making a lot of money and they go out and do something stupid just to be a part of the crowd or whatever, or
Makes
the
no
show.
sense.
And I'm just going,
There's no logics in it.
you're making
Yeah.
more money than you're
Mhm.
qualified to make. Every day is a good day, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every day is a good day. Why would you risk throwing all that away
By
for
doing something stupid.
doing something dumb where you've seen the dumbness done for years? And then you come right behind them like, it's not going to happen to me attitude. And I just go, are you kidding me? Why would you do that? These, some of them, the very blessed ones, are making seven figures. And I'm going, You should wake up happy every day thanking God. There's never a bad day. You're doing well. You're running track and field. Do you know how many track and field athletes can say they can live comfortably without worrying about anything? And you're going to jeopardize it by whatever it is, breaking the rules. And I'm like,
I,
so I'm a tough love guy. I
yeah.
believe in tough love. Um, I can be tough love and water it down a little bit, but still get the message through that, I'm disappointed in you. Um, I've never had to terminate an athlete. I've gotten close.
What about if they keep making the same mistake? Maybe not the same mistake, but the same category of mistakes. How do you get through to that athlete? There was a scandal here, 2 years time. There's another scandal. There's another one. How do you handle that situation?
Lots of prayer. I faced that a few times and
I know.
went to my wife about it and said, I don't think I'm cut out for this, and my wife would tell me, God has you on an assignment. And I'm like, what? And I said, yeah, but I'm taking bullets for people that I have nothing to do with it. I know I'm
Yeah,
supposed to protect them, but they're reckless. And at some point, I can't have my reputation torn down, recklessly, because then I'm knowingly partaking in their recklessness.
yeah,
And my wife would, God fearing woman, and she would just tell me, Ronaldo, you're here for a reason. And ultimately, it worked itself out because most people would come to me and say, "We know this is not you. We know why you're taking this position. We don't envy you. We know you." And but it bothered me a lot because my word is my word.
mm-hmm.
And there were times where I gave my word and the client would just recklessly say, "Well, I don't want to do that," after they agreed to it. And then I have to go back and tell a white lie, right? Protecting them, but knowing in my heart of hearts, this isn't right. And it's okay if it's not okay. It's never okay, but you want to feel that if you go to that length, that client receives and understands what you have done on their behalf. But when they don't care and they're just reckless and they repeat it, that's a character flaw.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's a philosophical challenge that I have to make. And I've had to, have that coming to Jesus talk with him and say, listen, this is not who I am. This might be who you are, but I don't flow like this. I work too hard. My father gave me a proud name, and if you don't care about your name, you got to care about my name. And that gets them, because then they're looking at me like, oh, he's serious. I'm like, yeah. And then I've never had to, call their bluff, but they've never called my bluff either.
Wow, what a story. We have athletes in track and field who continue to struggle. And when I say struggle, I'm talking about athletes who are Olympic champion, but because they are not in blue ribbon events or popular events, they struggle to get endorsements, in order to have a team behind them so that they're successful, the right coaches, the right physiotherapists, sports psychologists, nutritionists. How would you suggest young athletes position themselves so that they can attract the right sponsor?
The sport is changing, and I've been seeing it over the last 5 to 10 years, where only certain events are going to be the focused events, where most of the monies are being attributable. You go to foreign countries, and if it's the javelins or the hammers and all that, okay, that's fine. We don't have that, and you don't technically have that in your country. Yours is a sprint dominant, country. Mine is more or less sprint dominant. We have some middle distance, but really the bread and butter is world's fastest man's and human speed across all disciplines. And then I always tell people, you go to Olympic Games, and however many races and events they have, that's how many gold medalists they have. But not every one of them is going to be rags to riches stories. So I probably tell people to try to be the very best that you can. Take advantage of any and all opportunities. But the B plan is the plan to supplement what you're doing, right? Because and don't and don't forego any other real business opportunity in lieu of chasing a financial dream. Chase a dream of a medal, or a dream of making a team, or a dream of going to the Olympic Games or the World Championships, or whatever that is. Keep it all relative. But today, because we're in this climate, everything is about money. People are so disillusioned by that, and so many people are getting hurt because of that. Um, Less than 1% in our sport are the cream of the crop. That's not a lot of people, and so I don't know if we'll ever be there as a sport that's self-sustaining for most everybody. Um, I'm not poo-pooing it. It's just the reality of what we're facing. So, we have a young kid here, Quincy Wilson. He's 17 years old. He ran 44:10. Um, Phenomenal time. I don't know how much faster he can run. He didn't have a great second part of the year. He didn't make our team. So next year he's a senior. I don't know what his value is. You know what I mean? He's making money now because you can make money with name, image, and likeness. But on
Mm-hmm.
the world scene, he has no value. He has value in this country and in high school because it's important to the market that he's in. But when he goes on the global scene, the race against grown men who are running way faster, more consistently than he does, he starts from ground zero, and he has to run fast enough to get the invitation. Otherwise, he's just a high school phenom. So, and that could be the same for uh, who was it? Brianna Williams, right? Who was phenomenal early on and young, but didn't quite, made some relay teams, but didn't ever really make individual world championship 100 meters Olympic Games. Obviously, falling short of what she may or others may have thought. But if she had the opportunity to grow, mature, travel, learn, and take everything that it took her to ascend to being an international athlete into the next phase of her life, whenever that comes, hopefully those lessons, athletic lessons, will be fruitful in the real world.
Let me ask you something, Ronaldo. Do you think I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this question, because what I'm going to ask is going pro, we have juniors, we have teens who are running fair enough good times. uh is it fair, is it wise, not fair, is it wise for them to go pro too early in their career? And when I say pro, I'm talking about 16, 17, 18, maybe 19. Are they ready to be, and you just said it, are they ready to compete against the seasoned men and women? Is their body developed? Are they ready for that level of competition?
They may be able to replicate that time a couple of times against the seasoned professional, but because of most of them are still in puberty, they're still physically developing. They can't sustain that day in and day out against a grown man or grown woman. Just a training level to sustain at that level is taking a toll on their body. I know, whether it's my country or in Jamaica in particular, so many young kids are running fast. I don't know if they're running fast or people are encouraging them to run fast so they can get out of maybe poverty, if you will. But that's short lived. They should just develop at their own pace. And it hurts me when I see so many young kids, chomping at the bit to go pro. And I go, first of all, there's only 8 lanes on a track, and it is a global sport. And once upon a time, when there were 5 or 6 Jamaicans in the race and 5 or 6 Americans in the race, and they ran trials and finals, okay, they don't do that anymore.
It's not like that anymore.
So you may, on a great day, have 3, but typically it's 2 in the other countries, in the other countries, in the other countries. So I'm sitting up there going, why are we forcing these young kids to turn pro? To pro for what? What are they going to do? Who can they consistently beat where they can make a living? So they have plenty of time to mature and develop. Why are we force feeding them? And what happens is you throw them out there and they have short-lived careers. One, they fall out of favor because they're frustrated. They thought it was going to be all of this, and everybody told them they're going to be the next boy wonder or girl wonder, and it's not happening the way they want it to happen. And they're not disciplined because they haven't earned it. Somebody told them, and it's not coming from within. And then we have another one of our athletes fall by the wayside, become a statistic. And you hear about, oh, remember when such and such, man, they were so great. I wonder what happened. Well, they didn't pan out. Why? Because so many people are telling them that they're the next great Usain Bolt or Shelly Ann Fraser Price. And I'm just like, everything in their time. Everything in their time. Don't rush it. Let it come when it's supposed to come. You have, first of all, at 16, I don't even know, at 16 running that fast, probably by the time they're 22, 23, they're done. Sprinters don't last that long, right? You only have a short window to really optimize. It's been very few. Bolt, Gatlin, uh, who was the other?
Veronica Campbell Brown did it.
Yeah, Veronica
Yeah.
Campbell.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Who was behind Bolt? Was the king before Bolt showed up?
Asafa Powell.
Safa
Hmm.
Powell,
Hmm.
people like that, but they're gone now. And so what you're seeing is that's what you're seeing when we're talking about the hurdles and all these other sprints. Yeah, these people have these little short windows where you see them for 2-3 years and you go, what happened to them?
Yeah.
Well, when did they get into the game? Right. And there's so much physical demand on that body. They're physically immature, they're emotionally immature, they're around immature people who's not really looking out for them. They're looking out for what they can get from them. And it's this endless pit. And I see it in my country. People call me up all the time. Well, such and such can run this. I say, can you just let them be a young kid? Can you just let them just have fun? You're taking the fun away from them. You're
Yes.
telling them what they can earn instead of just saying, just develop. You know, I was one of the best when I was coming up. If I'd have turned pro back then, I don't know. I'd have been doing it for the wrong reasons, right? And so that's why, you can sustain a career because the love comes from within, not from all these external things. So there are a lot of things that I see happening in Jamaica. And you might have some coaches who hear what I'm saying tonight and take exception to it. I'm not calling out any particular coach. I don't know too many 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds who have long careers against grown men and grown women. I just don't.
True.
Right. So, by 25, if they're lucky, that's a long career. That's 8 years. They're not even making it that long.
I remember I saw an interview with Sydney McLaughlin, and she said in high school she did not train much.
No.
Her work did not start until she got to college. And she said at that time her body was ready for the work. So, what happened is that she gave herself time to develop the people who were around her. She got enough time to develop, enjoy her junior years, her,
No.
and by the time she got to college, she said her body, she was ready to take on that work. So sometimes, we do push the youngsters because they're running fast times. We want to pull them out of high school because they can go pro now. And I mean, I'm one of those people who have been lobbying to say, let them develop with time.
With time. Yeah.
Allow them to develop. It's a process. It's a cycle. That's how the cycle is supposed to be.
Yeah. I remember the late Harvey Glance, my best friend. and he used to tell me because he trained Karani James. And when I managed Michael Johnson, he said the same thing. He said, he was talking about the 400 in particular. He says, you only have so many in your body a year. And he goes, all these guys who are running 400s every 2 days, every 3 days, he goes, there's no way they're going to beat me when I come there fresh. And then I go home and rest and train and I come back fresh. And they've run 3 or 4 times a week. He goes, it's just not humanly possible for them to keep up that. Sidney McLaughlin doesn't run that much. You know,
True.
Usain didn't run that much. You know, rest and training was important to them, and they mastered that.
Shelly started very late
Yeah,
herself. You know,
herself.
she wasn't burnt out as a junior, as a teen.
Right. And then Shelly Ann or whatever, yes, she wants to run well when she first starts, but the objective was the end game, for the
Yeah.
championships to be ready. So, yes, she didn't want to lose if she did lose one or two early on. She was still working, getting through the season, working on her race pattern and things of that nature. And so, but if you don't have a name, you don't have a choice. You're trying to make a name and you got to run real fast in order to get another race. And it's just hard. I tell everybody, you go from high school, 16 years old to grown man, grown woman running, that's warp speed. You're running faster than you've ever run in your life. And you're chasing people at that. And you do that enough time, I think your growth plates get stressed. There's a lot of stress on the body that, over time, repetitiveness, it will not recover. It will not recover.
Wow. What was your plan? Did you have a plan when you were thinking about retirement? What was your plan for your life after competition? Did you have a plan? Because I've seen where athletes retire or on the verge of retiring, and they're saying they're not sure what will be the next step. Did you have a plan before you decided to walk away?
Yeah, so I had two plans. The first time I retired right after the 92 season. The season, probably about 3 years prior to retiring, um, every off season I was working. I was fascinated with finance and investments and all that. So I got to intern and then got hired by an investment brokerage firm, and I started doing that every off season. I was learning all about trading and things of that nature, and I got my licenses and all that. So when I retired, my very first time, I became a financial advisor, a broker, and so I had a job waiting for me full time when I retired. So that's what I was doing. And then as I was doing corporate business, I had some professional athletes, but most of it was corporate. Then professional athletes started calling me, especially track and field athletes, about, hey, can you handle our affairs? Can you manage us? You used to be one of us. These guys in these suits, we don't know who they are, and they don't really care like you do. So I started doing both for a while, but then it became libelous because I could be on a plane going to an event, and somebody calls and needs a stock trade. I can't trade it in the air because couldn't have a phone back then. So I let my firm take it over, and that's how I kind of immersed myself in the full time management and became a certified licensed agent. Um, and I'll officially stop being that as of December of this year because I have a new role. But so I was doing that, and then I worked for Octagon, which was a international firm here in Virginia. And then in 2011, I had learned enough from Octagon after 13 years to form my own firm. And I formed my own firm, got my, had my clients, developed that, had been doing that ever since. Um, and then now my next plan, because I tell everybody retirement isn't the same as it was for our parents, who just, when you retired, you just kind of collect, the government subsidy and sit around and whatever. I said, I'm a young, vibrant man. I'm much younger than my chronological age, and I still want to be productive, and I still feel very young. I still work out 4 days a week. And so I had been doing things, whether it's consulting, just keeping my mind active. I play golf, but I tell my friends I can't play golf every day. I don't love it that much. I want to be productive. And I like helping young people. so this new role that been I received through the University of Maryland as the executive director of the M Club. It's I'm working with former athletes and current athletes, and then obviously athletes who graduate, keeping them involved, keeping them supporting the school and the athletics department. So I'm still around young people, obviously. Uh, Now they're dealing with a lot more different things than I had to deal with, so I'm still kind of a dinosaur, but I'm trying to be as helpful as I can for them. And because I used to be one of them, at least I have street creed with them, right? So I'm not
Mhm.
somebody that doesn't know what I'm talking about, and I'm positive. So I want to, continue to support them, uh, meet with them, mentor them, do all those kinds of things that keep me young and vibrant, and all at the same time helping to, enrich my university at the same time.
Tell us a little bit about your new job that you'll be taking on, now that you'll be leaving sport, agent a little bit.
Right. So, as a former athlete at Maryland, it has been widely felt over the years that when athletes they graduated and they got finished representing the university, that the university kind of just threw them away. They didn't really keep them involved. And that left a bad taste in a lot of athletes' mouths. And it's been reflected with the poor membership over the years. And so, my new role coming in is to now find ways to bring them back, find different programs, events, celebrations, etc., games, to have them represent the university, have them sit in the suites, have them meet and greets, have them mentor athletes, have them create bucket opportunities for them uh, to be of value, to show them that now we didn't forget about you, we remember you, and you can still be a valuable asset to the university. So and I'm working with all the sports at my university, so I have to be an equal opportunity, a listener and provider, and try to find all these different things that we can involve athletes from a variety of sports. But I have a team of people that'll be working with me, so I'm looking forward to it. It's a different kind of challenge, but it's one that's near and dear because I have an affinity for my school. I support the school financially, so both my daughters graduated from there. So I'm looking forward to it.
Passion, talk about passion. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self, what would you be saying to your 18-year-old self now, tonight, this minute?
What would I say to 18-year-old Ronaldo?
Hmm.
Believe without doubt. Um, I was always a leader, never a follower. So I would probably second that amendment a second time. Is that, and then trust your instincts.
Yeah.
Um, and and you're judged by the company you keep. So always stay in good company. Stay around positive people. That's also people that are the light, because negativity only holds you back and takes you dark places that you don't need to be. And so I want to be around somebody who's positive, who sees opportunities as opposed to doom and gloom. I don't want to be a part of a pity party. And I grew up with people who, for whatever reasons, felt that way. But I also think, uh, you know, one of the things I learned early on is like 5 centers of influence. So, find, I always found people in different industries who were productive and doing things. And I try to hitch my wagon to them. Like, how did you do this? What makes you do this? Why are you doing that? I was intrigued. Like, everybody has to start somewhere. How did you get your start? You know, and there's never a bad question. I'm an inquisitive guy. Some people get tired of my questions because they come from left field, but I listen to uh, not what you're saying, but how you're saying it. Because I listen carefully, and sometimes people leave out things. So then I'll hone in on that, and then I'll ask the question, which forces them to address everything. Um, but Yeah, I'd be very inquisitive. I'd have my centers of influence, and I'd be around positive people. Yeah.
Indeed. Michael Hill is asking, what kept you so consistent? You were unbeaten for 4 years straight.
Well, we train consistent for consistency in practice. For instance, when my coach all of a sudden thought that I was so far above a lot of the other sprinters and quarter milers on my team, he had me working out with the half milers and the milers, and they ran a lot, but they also had to have an inner clock, they called it. So if he told you to run a 228 seconds, they would be right on 28. And so I had to learn, pacing and all that. And so even when it came to being consistent, I had to consistently hit times. When I was training over hurdles, I had to replicate times and put forth the same effort. The watch kept me honest. Without a watch, you can go through the motions and you don't know what you're doing. The watch doesn't lie. So the watch was my barometer for everything. And we got to a point where I was consistent in practice that gave me tremendous amount of confidence when I went to the meet to race, that I knew within hundreds of seconds, a tenth of a second most, what I could run, and add adrenaline to it. I probably ran faster. So I went into every race knowing what to expect, my range. Okay, I'm going to run, 13.1 or 13.2 in that range today. And I already knew that most people couldn't run that fast. So that gives you another level of confidence. But the key was to get to that 13.1 or 13.2 to prove that I was consistent. Um, Here's a little side story. When I when I had given up my scholarship my junior year in at Maryland, when Puma offered me that 5-year 125. So at that particular time, I couldn't train with the track team. I had to train alone. I had two friends of mine. One was a tennis player, and another one ran on a track team. And so they would come to the track with me after their practice. We practice in the evenings. And I remember this was indoor season, and I had to show them how to time my leg hitting the ground and starting to watch, from hurdle to hurdle to hurdle. And I remember they were giving me times when I would run over the hurdles, and the times were so fast, I thought they weren't paying attention, and they were just winging it. And I went off on them. I'm like, you guys aren't paying attention. I don't need you out here. And they go, no, no, you ran this time. I go, there's no way I ran that time. You missed it. You missed it. And I go over another pass, and it'd be the same time or maybe slightly faster. And I was getting madder and madder. And they say, I'm telling you, Ronaldo, we got these times. You told us how to do it. We're doing it. So I go to New York City. I got a big indoor race coming up. I don't know if I'm confident or lacking confidence, but I'm not too confident in what they were doing during the week, because I'm thinking they're not paying attention. They're talking while I'm running anyway. So I'm thinking they're just missing my times. HP, I break the world record. I shatter the world record. And they say, I told you you were running faster. You just didn't want to believe us. And I was like, wow. But that's how serious I was
Mm-hmm.
with my consistency, and because that was my safe zone for me, knowing that I could just replicate. And that's where my confidence was derived from. I was never an inconsistent guy. It was, I'm going to do this. And the watch kept me honest. But because they had lack of experience coaching, I questioned them. And,
And that was all self and work ethics. It's just
correct.
amazing. Guidance is very, very important. What advice would you give to these young athletes they're doing well, they're making money very early, signing big deals? What advice would you give them as a sport agent, an athlete yourself who have done it?
Humility. Be thankful for what's happening to you. Seek out insight and advice from those who came before you to help you continue to grow as a young man or young woman, uh, and just appreciate the journey. Don't take yourself too seriously, because then you miss a lot. Because you want to have fun along the way, and you don't want to take yourself too seriously. And it's not all about you. It's not all about you. Um, and so, but humility plays a major role in that. Humility will get you so much further than thinking it's all about you and I want. Because then you can receive and you can embrace and you can give. And so that's what I try to tell people. When I was coming up and I'd see OGs, I'd go talk to them, and ask questions and want to be around them because, there are certain attributes that I admired about them. And I was like, wow. And then I appreciated in the aftermath of all that, that it took great humility for them to share with this little snotty nosed kid who's asking all these questions. And they don't realize how much they helped me develop, maintain confidence, and also pay it forward with humility to make myself available to other people.
Well said. Well said. With that said, we are going to play a little game before we get out of here just to wrap things up. So it's called Quick Picks. I'm going to throw two things at you, and you just choose any one of them: track or football?
Track.
Track. 110-meter hurdles or 50-meter hurdles?
110.
College glory or pro spotlight?
College glory.
Training hard in the weights room or on the track?
On the track.
Pen relays or NCAA championships?
Pen relays.
World record or Super Bowl ring?
World record.
Wow, interesting. Your favorite city you've competed in?
Lausanne, Switzerland.
Wow. Clearing hurdles or catching a touchdown pass?
Clearing hurdles.
If you could coach one event today, which event would it be?
200 meters.
Why? You're a hurdler.
Because that's the closest thing to the hurdles. 200 meters. The stamina, the strength, high knee lift. Yeah. Hurdling is hard. Hurdling is hard.
I know.
I've coached hurdlers, and the aptitude, no offense, but hurdling is all about feel and visualization, and that's not innate in everybody. And so when I coached with Dalton Eubanks when he was at George Mason, it was very difficult for athletes to understand what I was saying. What's his name? Ian Weekly was great. He got second in NCAA Jamaica. I forget the 110 hurdler at the same time. But anyway, it was just hard. I could say things, but they couldn't visualize it, and they weren't technically as sound as I was, so that made it even harder. So, but a 200, that's a little bit technical. That's okay. It's not the same as going over a hurdle.
Wow. Renaldo Nehemiah, one word to describe your legacy.
My legacy, impact.
Impactful. Amazing. Your legacy, as I said before, and I kept saying, it is not normal. Track, football, agents, just amazing. It was indeed a pleasure having you here, though. But before we go, normally I would give my guest an opportunity to ask me one question. So while you think about your question, I know I'm throwing it at you, so I'll give you a few seconds to think about what you want to ask me. So you have an opportunity to ask me one question. So I just want to thank each and everyone for turning out tonight. I was really excited about this interview, and it As Michael Hill said, a great interview. Thank you, HP and Skeet, indeed, and thank you very much, Ronaldo. You look so relaxed. You were very very engaging and transparent and authentic, and I like that very much. So thank you
Thank you.
very very much, and all the best in your new position. I'm sure you'll be staying very close to the athletes anyway, but thank
Yes.
you very much for taking the time out to be here and, just hanging out with us and sharing your legacy as one of Jamaica's. You're from a country that is Jamaica's biggest rival in track and field, and it started from as far back as 1948 in the 400 meters.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my one question for you, I just thought of
Mm-hmm.
it, is that of all the interviews that you've conducted and the athletes that you've spoken to, what is the single most surprising thing that you weren't prepared to learn?
Ah, wow, what a question. Ooh, now I'm going back in time. Oh, wow, wow.
Like you knew
What?
about their careers, but you
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that, and that kind of like, wow.
Ah, wow, 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 that's a big one.
Yeah.
I remember when I spoke to Karen Stewart. I don't know if you know Karen Stewart.
Mm.
She is an outstanding sprinter, former sprinter for Jamaica, created history
Hmm.
for us in that 1-2-2 at the Olympic Games in Beijing. I
Okay.
remember when I did her interview, she told me that she had a certification in carpentry,
Ah,
and that was very surprising. I was like, okay, carpentry. Okay. So that was one of the things that I heard that I did not know. I did not know. I wasn't ready for, because my focus was so much on her track and field career, her academics, and, her
mhm.
achievements in those departments. So when she threw that at me, it had me thinking that our athletes are really, when you talk about diverse, when you talk about versatile,
Right.
that's how they are. And when I did Dr. Arthur Wynne's interview with his two daughters, they shared a lot about him, and I did not know that he was a pilot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Dr. Arthur Wynne was a pilot.
Nice.
So those are some of the things when I interview athletes, I discover little things that the general public is not aware of.
Yeah, that's what I like to learn when I talk to different people. Like, what do you
Hmm.
do away from your fields of play? Like,
Hmm.
what do you find enjoyable outside of training and performing? So that's nice to hear. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. And thank you very much for being here. It was really a pleasure talking to you. It was very easy, flows nicely, and thank you very much. Don't be a stranger now. Thank you very
No,
much.
I appreciate it. It was enjoyable from start to finish. So thank you so much, and thank you for all those who took part in listening and writing questions, submitting questions. I really
Yes.
appreciated that, and thanks for those in Jamaica who were fans. And you know, it was needed during those years.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Indeed, indeed. You guys did it for the passion, friendships,
yes,
and so forth. And I've heard that a lot when I interview athletes from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and I hear the stories from Miss Vilma Charlton, Lilith
yeah,
Hodges, Dorothy Scott, Vivian,
oh
Yvonne,
yeah,
Etlin Tate. Those people, when I listen to their story, I I mean, I am almost envious that I did not get to that level in
mm,
my track career.
right,
The friendships that they form, it was just awesome, from high school to college to pro, the Olympic level, whatever it was just amazing. And
lasting bonds.
yeah, Yeah. And another thing too that I discovered interviewing you, I did not know that so many of my Jamaican athletes, former athletes, knew who you were. That was a shocker to me. Yeah, that was a
Well, yeah,
shocker.
I enjoyed running in Jamaica and Penn Relays. Jamaican has a huge contingency that goes to Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
So, listen, what do they say? Real knows real. That's Jamaica,
Yeah.
and so they were big fans of mine, and I was big fans of theirs, and so I enjoyed. When you appreciate it, it's you go there to perform to give the people what they want. And
Yes.
so when you find it doesn't matter where they're from, but if they appreciate you and they're rooting for you, they want to see something, special. You want to, live up to that. And so I wanted to honor everybody who came out to watch me perform. I didn't care what country they represented. I wanted to do my best for everybody.
Indeed, indeed, and there's something I noticed too. Even though America and Jamaica are big rivals in the sprints, a lot of them have formed friendships because even Justin Gatlin, who he and Bolt went neck to neck in their career, when Justin comes to Jamaica, he is all over with Usain Bolt, Asafa Powell, all of these guys, they outside of what they do, they had friendships, they had connections, which is very good. Even with our women and the American, it is what I call a healthy rivalry. It is
Yes,
very, very healthy.
yes, yes.
Very,
Great
very
mutual
healthy.
respect for one another. Yeah.
And Michael Hill he's also saying that Mr. Dr. Arthur Wint was also an ambassador to the United Kingdom, which is true. He was
Oh,
an ambassador.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was a lot of things. He was a doctor, he was a pilot, he was
Wow.
an athlete, he was an ambassador. He was truly,
Whatever
um,
he wanted to do, he was excellent at it.
yes, he
Yeah.
was, he was, he was. So, with that said, thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Renaldo Nehemiah in the building, guys. Thank you very much for being here, everyone. And you all have a great weekend. And I'll be back here next week with one Rosie Allwood. I don't know if you know that name, uh, Renaldo, Rosie Nehemiah, another Jamaican, outstanding Olympian, three-time Olympian
Okay.
for Jamaica. She will be here next week telling us about her journey, her story,
Nice. Nice.
and the whole works. So thank you very much, sir. Have a great
Thank
night.
you.
Have a great weekend.
Okay. Blessings to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Okay, guys. So that was a very, very, very interesting interview. One that I enjoyed very much. And of course, I'm all about legacy. It doesn't matter where you are from. I'm about the legacy. And that was Renaldo Nehemiah, an American sprint hurdler who became Super Bowl champion back in 1984, 1985. So thank you guys for being here. Michael Hill, thank you very much. Thanks for all the information, the questions. Vonnie M. Ivan Saunders was here, 1972, 1976 Olympian. Lilith Hodges was here, 1972, 1976, 1980 Olympian. Dorothy Scott was also here, 1980 and 94, 1984 Olympian. Albert, another Olympian, was also here, 1980, 1984. Andre Bliss, another outstanding athlete for Jamaica, formerly of St. Jago, was here. Spring Tech was also in the building. Thank you all very much. And to each and everyone, whichever continent you are in, Africa, Asia, North America, South America, Antarctica, Oceanic. Did I leave out anyone? Europe. Thank you all for being here, all seven continents. Thank you. And join me next week, Tuesday, when I will have one Miss Rosie Allwood in the building, formerly of Titchfield High School and, of course, the University of Florida. She will be here. Another Jamaican Olympian will be in the building. Guys, have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your night. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much, my auntie Lily, the Audrey. She was saying it was a pleasure, great interview. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for the support and thank you for turning up every week to listen to us chat about track and field and just celebrating athletes legacy. That's what we do over here. Of course, the focus is on Jamaica, but legacy, we're going to go anywhere to get the legacy. So we will be having more of these interviews where athletes from other countries will join the space, but it is all about, the concentration is on Jamaica. So you guys have a great night. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and do all the niceties. And I will see you next week. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great night, guys. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much. And peace. I'll see you around. Bye. Next week. Bye bye.
Jamaica's track and field legacy is unmatched. It is a story of triumph, resilience, and extraordinary talent. But do you know the stories behind the athletes who brought us glory? Hi, I'm HP, founder of HP Chat Track. My mission is simple: to celebrate the rich legacy of Jamaica track and field and shine a light on the incredible people who make it happen. Winning that race was a dream come true, but the journey wasn't easy. It's not just about medals, it's about inspiring the next generation. Jamaica track and field isn't just a sport, it's our pride, our culture, our heart. Every week I sit down with athletes, coaches and fans to bring you stories of dedication, passion and legacy. Plus, we've got exciting news and exclusive insights into the world of track and field. Make your Thursday night be at HP's place. Come hang out with us at HP Chat Track Studio, where track and field is our business. Jamaica. One people,